Welcome to a new Node-RED video, and this time I want to show you the sort of the final working version of the irrigation computer. The code has been completed, I think, last autumn, and also there was some hardware changes for a new weather station, which also I completed this September, because I wanted a weather station which is in the shade, so it monitors the temperature, which is, you know, like an accurate temperature, not something which is out in the sun, so it always gets hotter when the sun shines on it in the summer. So these two components was done, and I think I started using this code for about 1.5 months, 2 months ago. So that's actually controlling my irrigation, not the sort of the manual process that I used in the previous years. And I've also completed a dashboard 2.0 dashboard for it, so I can just monitor it, see what is it doing, and I migrated some of the functionality over from dashboard 1.0, just made it a little bit better, a little bit, I think, better looking. I'm still playing around what is the best way of, you know, creating some nice visuals, although you can see that some of the stuff here get broken up, so probably I should play around with sizing, and then maybe here putting some no wrap option here, so it doesn't get broken up into multiple lines here when there is not enough space. Anyway, those are like fine tunings which I can do. So let me show you what it does at the moment, and also let me show you that it looks much better in full screen. And if before I do that, let me show you the 1.0 irrigation, which is very similar. So again, I had a panel here, or a group, which shows all the values, and I had a chart which basically well, I think that's a better chart to see because it has more values. This new code only runs for about 2 days, so it doesn't have enough values. So it shows the temperature here. It shows the water balance, which tells the system if the irrigation needs to run or not. So that's calculated based on the evaporation on the day and how much I irrigated, either from, well, how much water the lawn has received either from irrigation or from rain. And then we also had some rain here, so that's all the additional water that was gained by rainfall, and a little bit of here as well. And there were like a bunch of messages that are coming from a calculation which it did, like, you know, whenever it calculates, so at 11 o'clock it calculates that whether water is needed, what is the new balance, and then at 5 o'clock it adds the water from the irrigation, because the irrigation runs in the morning. Okay, and in the new dashboard it is pretty much the same. So I have some panels here which shows me the actual data. I have the same graph, as I said, because it's running for a couple of days now. It's basically like this, or even less, probably like that much. So you can see here the temperature, how it changes, and also the water balance. So there was a water balance here, and then the water got used by basically a hot day and evaporation. And then at this point the water balance was negative, so the system decided that we need to irrigate, and then we gained some additional water because obviously the irrigation, and that's a rainfall. So we had 0.3, 0.6, so there was a little bit of rain in the last, what was it, today and last night. And here I have all the data that the logic has all the data. So at the moment it's 30 degrees, the maximum was 33. There was a bit of a storm today, so we have 0.6 millimeters of rain, and the chance of rain for tomorrow is 80%. And at the moment the water balance is 5.4 millimeters, and then for today the lawn needs 6 millimeters of rain, because that's calculated based on the maximum temperature. So when the calculation runs at 11 o'clock, it would subtract 6 from 5.3. No, actually it's going to add 0.6. So technically it's going to be, you know, 5.3 plus 0.6 minus 6, which is going to be 0. And I think the logic is that if the balance is below 0, it's going to schedule the irrigation. So I think it's not going to schedule the irrigation. And this panel is something that I added because I wanted to see I wanted to make sure that the irrigation runs. So at the moment, this is the water level in the tank, in the water tank, and it also takes the reading of the water tank at midnight, and then it calculates that from midnight how much the level went up and down. So that basically just tells me that in normal cases, if it goes down, that's the amount of water that I used for irrigation. So that's how long the pump was running in order to pump the water from the cistern to the lawn. And then once the the water level drops in the cistern or in the water tank, then the well pump starts to replenish that one. So this is how the well pump was running. So my well doesn't produce a lot of water, so this is why I have this intermediate tank. So the well fills the tank, and then the cistern pump or water tank just irrigates it to the water. So this is how I can maintain the amount of volume and the pressure that is needed for the irrigation, because the well wouldn't be able to support that. And I also have the same thing here with the messages. And the only reason you don't see dates for some of these older messages, because I added a piece of code which pre-populates this time code. I'm not really sure if I can generate the time code on the template UI. So I add the time code like this sort of human readable format time code to the data, and that's what I pass to the table. But again, these are all data from before the code change, so they don't have the text field maintained. So that's it. I think it looks good. Again, I was trying to use my, if you remember, I did a video on how I created these weather cards, and I was trying to use the, some of these from here. The scaling of these look a little bit off. I'm not sure why is that. So again, I was trying to use this whole the same concept that I used here. So which means that I have so this is one card, and I have an icon on the left, and then I have the data on the right, and then I have a new line which here it doesn't have anything, and then it has another piece of data in a smaller text. And I was playing around with, maybe using if it's two pieces of information which is sort of like the same thing, then I just use a smaller text for both of them. So in the style sheet, you can play around with the H numbers. So it's a header 2, header 3, header 4, 5. And the same here, and that's just a table, and that's just a chart. So let's look at the code. The code hasn't really changed well, this one definitely, this one has changed just a slight bit, because it wasn't outputting the data correctly in one case, and I sort of forget what that was. I was sending the data out. I think maybe it was this line. No, it's not this line. So there was a node.send or a return or something where I accidentally, maybe it was this one. So I didn't format the data right, because again, if you try to send a data out which doesn't have a payload at least, then it would get ignored because it's not a valid node-read message. So I was just, I said return data, but it should have been a return object where the payload is the data. Otherwise, it would just get ignored. So there was one error, and I don't remember which line was that. So that got fixed. But the rest of it is exactly the same. So the only thing I have done, well, the couple of things that I have done here is, if I just zoom out a little, so you see again, all the things here for dashboard 1.0, and I added this second one, which is the status, which basically renders this set of vCards here, and the irrigation chart. So that's the dashboard 1.0 irrigation chart, and that's the dashboard 2.0 irrigation chart, which is, again, it's very simple. I haven't really, all I specified here that I want to view 5 days of history. That's all, and it has a title and a group, nothing else. And I could pipe the same data through. So again, it works exactly the same how the old irrigation chart works. So that was very, very useful. And that's it. And probably the only other change I made from the last video is that previously when I finished the code and it was just working and I was testing it, it was just sending me messages. But then I added this function which actually sets the register in the PLC, which then controls the irrigation. So it does a Modbus right here. As you can see here, it's basically I'm just setting register 1457 to the value true. So that's a flag. So I'm using Modbus function 5. And the reason I do it 5 times because, yeah, it didn't happen. Sorry, 4 times because it didn't happen, I think, once. So I thought, okay, maybe this update message is getting lost for some reason. So I just resend it again 5 seconds, 30 seconds, and 1 minute later, just to be sure that it's set. And that's also why I'm having these things which basically tell me, give me a feedback that it actually runs. And then it did what it was supposed to do. So the rest of it has not changed. And for that card, I have a separate flow which I'm not going to share because again that's very specific to my setup. But I collect all the basically this free information from the system. What is the current water level, how long the well pump ran, and how long the cistern pump ran. And I have a piece of code here which it resets at midnight, and then since at any other time when data is updated, which is like every I think every minute or something like that, then I recalculate what what is the delta is from the midnight level, and then if the delta is bigger than the sort of these up and down values, then I update it. So I always see the maximum changes of the water level, and I just convert the runtime because it comes in a weird format. So I convert it to minutes, and that's all I do, and it's getting saved in a flow variable, water data. Yep. And that, oops, I shouldn't have done that. And that goes into another template node which renders that screen. Irrigation computer. Glitch. And this guy is up here. Yep. So then whenever update goes, and then it goes to the status, and then it updates, this status which updates this V card. And then you can see all these 2 V cards in the same group. So this is why I like a frame in a frame. So let me explain this, or let me show you the status node, which actually is really easy. Template node as usual. And here, well, the last part is even easier. So I have I have this expand which is only left over from the weather card, which had an expandable forecast. But the main thing is a payload, and all I'm doing is I'm putting the payload, the message.payload into this payload object, and then up here in the template I can just reference everything as payload dot and whatever information I send through. And just like before, well, not that before, the video that I just recorded, so I'm using V cards, and this also is a series of V cards under each other. So you can see that there is one V card here, you can see this small line, and there's another V card, another V card. Maybe I could have done it in a single one, but I like this, the separation anyway, so I thought, that's fine. So on the top of on the first V card, we have a subtitle. So we have a title, which is a parameter, and then a subtitle that you can see here. So parameters, and then, so this is the number of rain count, so how many times the rain meter has reported and how many times the temperature has been reported. And then I have a set of, sorry. So I don't have, so this is one V card, but I have a set of card texts. So I have one card text, which is this one, and that basically corresponds for rendering this part of the screen. So there's 2 temperature values and this temperature icon. So I created a small table, as you can see, V row align center, and then so it has 2 columns. The first has, so here I think that's also the same as the table. So by default, the table has 12 columns. So 6 columns, which basically divides the thing to half. So what probably I can do is I can reduce this to 4, so there is more space left for the actual text. So on the left, I put the thermometer with the color and the size. So that's just an icon. And in the other one, I put the payload.currentTemp. So I send in a payload which has all these attributes. So it's an object which has current temp, max temp. So I can just call these, values out. So, and then degrees centigrade. And then under that, you see it's another row where in the first column there is nothing. And then the max temperature. And so that's what I said in the beginning, that I just control the size of the text by text -h2. So this is a header 2, this is a header 5. So obviously the header 2 is bigger, header 5 is smaller. That works fine. And based on my previous examples, I created this div, which is just a small amount of space, because otherwise this line was just right up just under the max, and I wanted to have a small visual separation, so I created this div. I'm not really sure if that's the best way, but I used this before and it seems to be consistently rendering that amount of space under the text. And I put a divider. So previously this line is not the end of the card, it's just a divider in the card text. And again we have another card text which has again a table, 2 rows. First one has the icon and the and a text. The other one has nothing in the first column and again a text. Yeah, nothing extraordinary. And then it also has a spacer and the divider. So that's basically this middle part. And then I have these one here at the bottom. So there is a little bit more spacing here because then the font is smaller, so there is more space around the font. But it's this one, so they have the sprinkler icon with a different color. And so as I said, in the previous examples there was header 2 and header 5, so here is header 4 and header 4, so that's why they appear at the same font size. So there is a balance and there is a needed, and a little bit of spacer, and obviously no divider, because that's the end of it. So that that line is just the end of the card, and that's it. And this other thing, well, it's not going to be included in the example, and it works exactly the same way. So I just basically copy and pasted this, and created this other example which only has 2 card texts. So that the top one has the waves icon and the water level, and the other one has a pump icon and have the 2 run times. But the script part is exactly the same. So again, if you want to use this type of card displays or status things, then I think this is a good example. So you just have a list of data that you pass in the message.payload as an object, and then so this puts it into the local payload variable, and then you can just reference to each of the attribute as payload.something. And it's very easy to add. You just change the icons. You can copy and maybe duplicate the card text or the rows if you want more information. Maybe the other thing I could have done is that create one big table here, so the icon is sort of like middle aligned in this space, but I think it looks okay if it's aligned to the top. So it's fine. I like the way it looks. Okay. I already mentioned about, where is my stuff? Yeah, so I already talked about the chart. So there is nothing really on the chart which I, special. I mean the dashboard 1.0 chart is like this. As I said, the only thing I defined is that the last 5 days. And then it works exactly the same way on the dashboard 2.0 chart. So, the action is append. So every new data that comes in gets appended. And then the access limit is 5 days. Anything older than 5 days gets dropped off automatically. Maybe I would turn off this circle because there are so many data points here. I mean, here it makes sense to have circles, but unfortunately you can't say that I want circles here, but I don't want circles up there. So probably just to make it a little bit cleaner, I would turn off the circles. And yeah, show the legend, and I might also play around with the colors just to make the first two not blue, but yeah, that's fine. And here, if you don't remember from the previous video, so anything which comes out of this irrigation computer flow is actually going to be this structure, data. So again, it's more or less a flat object with the exception of the messages. So max temp rainfall, da, 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 da. So all this comes out at the same time. So what I'm doing here is just, you know, putting each of these variables. So here I put the current temp into the payload, and I put a topic, and the same for, you know, rainfall, and I put a topic rainfall, because that renders these as different series. And when you hover over the series, it shows the, you know, the title as well in nice readable format. So it's not, you know, like cryptic lowercase stuff. Looks a little bit more professional. And finally, the last thing that I added is these messages here. And that's up. Oh yeah, that's probably one other thing which I modified in the code, because whenever I create these messages, actually it's up here. So here, whenever a new message is added, I capture the current date, and the message basically previously just contained a timestamp and a text, and now I added this time text, which is the now.to locale string. So that converts into this sort of like human readable format, so I can pass it into the table and it just displays it. So I don't have to deal with the formatting on the client side, because I mean client side as in the on the view table, because I'm not sure if I would be able to do that. So here, whenever the messages are generated, I put the messages into the payload, which is the array of all these messages. So data messages, you can see them here. So each has a timestamp. Oh, let me show you the timestamp, the text, and the time text. That's what I display. And I use the same thing which I mentioned in the previous video. So this is like a bare bone way of showing a table content using the template node. And actually now, since I started mentioning this, I know that in Dashboard 2.0 we actually have a table component. Yeah, so maybe I could have used that one as well. But I'm so used to, you know, using the template nodes nowadays that I just create template nodes for pretty much everything. And here in the template, I just created a V table where it gets the items from the payload, and then it gets the headers from the headers. And then it has a search field, and there is, you know, literally nothing in the script. I just defined this search, which is the search variable. And then before I pass all the items in the payload, I also create these headers object, which I put in the message.headers, and that just contains all the fields that I actually want to show. So I can pass a much more complicated object or array of elements into the template, but then with this one I can control which one gets displayed and which one does not. And so I have the value, which is the name of the attribute. The title obviously becomes the title, and the sortable just means that you have these up and down sorting arrows on the table. Yeah, and I just pass it along, and then it would automatically get updated whenever a new message is getting generated. And I think that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do now is, well, for this video, I'm going to export this much of the flow, which is going to create everything except this which is very specific to my setup. So you still get the chart, you still get this balance thing, and then also you get the, you know, the system messages in Dashboard 2.0. And as I said, it still has all the nodes here, which is Dashboard 1.0. So if you want that, you can choose which one you keep and which one you delete. And of course, you know, setting up this irrigation computer is a little bit more difficult. Well, I mean, there is a certain things that you need to do, which I explained in the previous video, but I think I might just follow this up in a couple of weeks with a new video, where I explain the whole concept, you know, how the logic works, and then what you need to do if you know, don't really care about the, you know, the inner workings. You just want to take my example flow and then configure it for your needs. So I think that would be all for today. As I said, link is going to be in the video description. Links to previous videos are going to be in the cards and hopefully in the video descriptions as well. But that's going to be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.